I'm holding one of the greatest smartphones ever created. I ordered it from Samsung to give it a try just to see if it would push me over the edge, get me out of that walled garden that Apple has me in. And this is my experience with the Samsung Galaxy S21 Ultra 5G. If I had to summarize this phone in one word, it would be incredible. Seriously, everything from the screen, the cameras, the software, even the color. And yes, the color is amazing. I don't even know where to start with this thing, so I guess we can start with the unboxing experience. My first thought when I picked this phone up out of the box was, wow, this is really nice. It's dense, it's heavy, but it's weighted very nicely and it feels premium. And like I mentioned, that color, it's a matte black, phantom black, Samsung calls it. I also talked about it on the Z Flip 3 video, which you can go check out in the corner. But this color is just amazing. It doesn't attract fingerprints. It is a kind of a matte, grippy texture. Honestly, holding this phone, I don't feel like I need a case on it at all. And I used it without a case with no problems. Around the edges is kind of a metal grill that is very nice. It does attract more fingerprints, but I kind of like it. I think it's kind of a neat touch. It's just grippy. It's a very comfortable phone to hold. I don't feel like I'm going to drop it or it's going to slip. Like, I have a good grip on this thing at all times. So the hardware, I absolutely love it. You really get the best of both worlds with this color. You get the nice textured, grippier finish of a plastic while still having the glass back, so you have wireless as well as reverse wireless charging through it. So it's very, very nice. And speaking of those sleek black rails along the edges, I love how they incorporated that into the camera bump. They didn't just slap the camera bump on the backside and say, there it is. They actually incorporated it. I don't know if you can see that a bit there. They incorporated it into the rails of the phone so that it actually is part of the structure. And I think that's really, really cool. And that screen is just the most gorgeous thing I've ever seen, starting with the always-on display. Now, I'm a former Android user, gone iPhone, and I do really miss the always-on display. I think it's super nice to have that information just sitting there without having to open up the phone. And just the colors on this thing are insane. And the refresh rate, it's just an incredibly beautiful, beautiful screen. And I never get tired of using it. I love this thing. Now, something with the screen that a lot of people have complained about, but I have not found to be an issue, is the fact that it does wrap ever so slightly around the edges. And I'll try to get it so you can see that there. But it's not completely flat like the iPhone. It kind of curves around the edges ever so slightly, like Samsung likes to do with their phones. But I think it's a little less than what it was in the previous generation, the S20 Ultra. And honestly, it hasn't been an issue for me. Yeah, you can feel it a little bit if you're on the edges of the screen, but I think there's some kind of a level of blockage there where they don't allow you to, have accidental touches or mishaps there. So I haven't personally had an issue with it, but I put up a white photo so you can kind of see all edges of the screen. I think the edge feature is quite nice. It doesn't bother me at all. And like I said, I've had no accidental mishaps with touching the screen there. Also, that camera punch, I kind of like it. Coming from the notch on the iPhone, this is very subtle. It's very nice. You kind of forget that it's there, especially on something as dark as an OLED wallpaper. You don't see it at all. So I do quite like that it's there. It's kind of subtle and I dig it. So in terms of hardware, I have to give this thing an absolute 10 out of 10. It is by far the best hardware design I've ever seen, ever used on a phone. Feels amazing, feels great. I don't feel like I need a case on it at all. It's just such a durable feeling and nicely balanced feeling phone. You gotta try it. It's premium, highly premium. You'll notice in my Z Flip video, I actually complained about the button placement, that the volume rocker is above the power button there. But for whatever reason on this, it doesn't feel as bad. I don't know if it's because the phone is a little wider, but it shouldn't be. They're the same size, or whether it's just like slightly lower. But for me, I had no issues with the volume rocker being up above the power button. Didn't really bother me at all on this phone. Software-wise, it's running Samsung's One UI 3, which I think is a terrible naming scheme, but tomato, tomato. But what the software lacks in name, it makes up for in style and performance. Coming from an iPhone, I'm used to a certain fluidity and I'm used to a certain design language that works every time. And this is a major improvement over stock Android and over Samsung's previous versions like TouchWiz. And I think this is just a great example of retaining the customization that Android gives you while giving you some kind of a beauty and elegance over the design, similar to what like an iPhone might be like. If you're looking for an Android that's as close to an iPhone as possible, this is going to be pretty much your best bet. I think Samsung did a great job on the design language, and they still give you complete and full customization over pretty much every element of the phone throughout the entire OS. And I think it's just a great fluid experience, and I do like it. As well as the gestures. I do like the app switching gestures. Not quite as fluid as an iPhone, but it's still miles ahead of where it was when it first came out and first debuted on Android several years ago. So it's definitely usable, and it just took me a little while to get used to, but I do like it. But I made the claim earlier in the video, this is probably one of the greatest smartphones ever created, so why? Up till now, it's just a normal looking phone. What else is so special about it? Let's get into some of those little quirks and features that it has that really tempted me and pushed me over the edge with switching to this from the iPhone. And I'll let you know later in the video whether or not I will be switching to this permanently. First off is that in-screen fingerprint scanner. First I thought it might be a little gimmicky, may not work that great, but holy cow, it's amazing to just place my finger and I'm in the phone. That's nice to have that kind of control again. I do miss Touch ID at times. Don't get me wrong, I like Face ID. I think it works fantastic. You don't really have to think about getting into your phone, but there are certain times where this fingerprint scanner is just amazing. You know, if you're out in public and you're wearing a mask, or if the phone is just on the table and you don't want to pick it up, using this, it just works every time. It's fluid, and man, if I could just pick this over Face ID, I would pick this every time. It's awesome. Now this also does have a face unlock feature. It's not super secure because you can technically use a photo to fool it, but it does work. So if I open it up to the lock screen, it opens me up instantly. I'll do it one more time so you can actually see, you know, it works pretty darn well. So overall, not so bad if you're trying to get into the phone. But just that fingerprint scanner, oh, it's nice. And this thing also has S Pen support too, which is kind of nice if you don't want something as large as a Note, but you still want to be able to use that S Pen. You can use it just fine, and it's great. You know, it's nice to have that feature, but honestly for me, I don't find that I use it that often, especially since there's no place to store the S Pen. Yeah, Samsung sells a bulky case that kind of tucks into the back of the case, but that's kind of annoying. I used to have the Note 4 device where the pen just slid into the phone itself, and even then I didn't really use it that often. So especially now, when I ordered this from Samsung, they gave me extra money, basically like a gift card. So I got this along with the phone, and honestly have not used it much more than like 3 or 4 times to just doodle here and there. Not something that I really use. I don't really find that I'm in need of a stylus or a pen day to day, so it's just kind of a fun thing to have. This is, it's not a huge plus for me, but it's also not a huge ding either. Nice to have it, but I just don't use it. Okay, next let's talk about one of the most exciting things, and that is this huge camera array on the back. If I can get it to angle in the light, there we go. This huge camera array. So this thing has 4 cameras on the back. That little guy up there at the top, that is actually not a camera. That is a laser autofocus system. So it does have laser autofocus, which is pretty cool. Helps you to focus even better. So what we have camera-wise on the back here is a 1x regular camera lens. We have a 0.6x wide-angle lens. We have a 3 times optical zoom lens, a 10 times optical zoom lens, and then we have a 100 times space zoom, which is a digital zoom, but still pretty cool. Just a huge array of options from this camera system. That space zoom is almost a borderline gimmick. It doesn't take very clear pictures. It's more just to have for reading information far away or something, but it is kind of cool to have. By far though, my favorite is the 10 times optical zoom camera. That is just amazing to have that level of depth, that level of zoom, and still get a clear enough image. Very cool to have in a phone like this. Also, not to mention that wide angle also doubles as a macro lens. So you can get super close to something, way closer than you think you could, and get a super detailed close-up shot of something, anything really. It's amazing the way it can focus up so closely using that wide angle. That and the 10 times zoom are kind of coupled with 2 of my favorite features. Very cool to have. And in addition to that, it also has a 108 megapixel sensor. Granted, you can only use this on the regular 1x camera, but it is still insane to have that many megapixels jam-packed into a phone camera to take a super high quality image if you wanted. And it also has a pro camera mode built into the stock camera, so you have full control over everything like your ISO, your aperture, your shutter speed, across everything, all camera systems in here. Very, very cool to have just stock on the phone. The front-facing camera also features a wide angle, so you can get group selfies in without using that long selfie stick. But that's kind of expected on phones these days. On the video side, it can shoot up to 8K 24 frames per second, which is the wrong frame rate, but it's still pretty cool that it can do that, and it can also do your 4K up to 60 frames per second also. Very capable on the video front. It also has built-in video stabilization, so you can start filming, recording, and just walk with this thing and get decent, very decent handheld stabilized results. Not bad. Now this is seriously the most versatile camera system I've ever seen, ever used in a phone, and I love it, but I also don't. Here's why. So I did quite a bit of testing with this thing, and I consistently kept getting mixed results. For instance, the shutter speed was inconsistent. Now I understand, depending on low light situations, it might take a second to actuate the shutter, but from the time I pressed the shutter button to the time I got the photo taken, even in fine lighting situations, it was just a little slow for me, especially coming from an iPhone where it just works quickly and snappy every time. This is pretty slow and inconsistent. Sometimes it would take an extra second, sometimes it wouldn't. And that just was something that I didn't care for, especially if I'm taking photos of a moving subject. Still subjects are fine, but I was outside with my son on the driveway, just taking photos of him playing with bubbles, and it just kept getting mixed results every time. Some photos were overexposed, and then the next photo I'd take would turn out just fine. And I don't really understand or know why. Some photos would take longer to process, some photos would take longer on the shutter speed. So it just really was mixed as far as the results were going. And I wasn't changing that much. It's not like I was shooting into the sun or drastically changing anything I was doing. I was taking a photo, taking another photo, and they just kept coming up with different results each time. Well, the ones that did turn out nice look really nice, I think. The ones that didn't, I don't like to have inconsistent results. I want to be able to take the picture and know that it's going to be the same every time. So that's a bit of a knock for me. So overall, I think this camera system packs a powerful punch, and it's definitely not to be underestimated or underrated, but to me, the inconsistency is just too big of an issue. Another feature I kind of enjoyed was the reverse wireless charging. Kind of nice to just flip that setting on, and then you can put anything like your headphones or your another phone on the back of this phone, and it'll just give it a charge up. That's super nice, and I wish all phones could do that. That's cool. Overall, I can't say anything bad about this phone. I mean, the Snapdragon 888 processor, and the fact that it has Samsung DeX built in, which is a whole operating system in the phone. So I can connect to a monitor. I even wirelessly connected to my TV and can use my phone as like a mouse and just navigate around a desktop-like experience. Very cool. Honestly, this thing is so feature-packed, and I just love it. But the big question that I've been asking myself while using this phone, and I'm sure you're wondering, is will I be switching away from my iPhone? I'll save you the time and answer that right now, and I'm going to say, no, I am not. And that was a super hard decision for me. One day I was gung-ho, I'm selling my iPhone. The next day I was unsure. And let me explain why a little bit, because this is not an easy decision. As a tech reviewer, I believe it's my duty, my responsibility to give equal bias or unbiased towards systems, all products, to be able to give my best recommendation and my best thoughts. And honestly, I love this thing. I love Android. That's where I started. I've used it for many years. Android always has a special place in my heart. But so does iOS, for different reasons. Let me get into that. So first off, the battery for me was not great. And I understand that this phone has to learn you and spend time. Maybe it just didn't get enough time to learn me. But for having a battery larger than the iPhone XS Max, and I wasn't getting as much battery out of it as my 12 mini, that's kind of a disappointment, kind of ridiculous. Over time, would it have gotten better? Perhaps, maybe, but honestly, it's just not good. Even just this thing sitting out on my desk, I plugged it in last night to charge it up for this video. I came back this morning, I was at like 75%. Like, it drains incredibly fast without doing anything. And I don't know if that's just how Android works or whatever, but kind of a disappointment. I need battery life to get through the day. And another thing that bugs a lot of people, personally doesn't bother me too much, is the fact that Samsung actually removed the expandable storage from this phone. So you can't put a micro SD card in up to 64 or 128 gigabytes to get you that extra storage. The storage that comes with the phone, SSD wise, when you buy it, is it. There's no way to expand it. So that's kind of a disappointment. In the past, I did utilize that feature a lot when and where I could. So that's kind of a bummer on this phone. and I know I'm gonna get a lot of hate in the comments for saying this, but probably the biggest reason why I'm not switching to Android right now is iMessage. That's really it, the Apple ecosystem. And I know it's petty and it's stupid, and I wish it wasn't that way. I really do. I wish it wasn't. But just me switching over to this for a week, I missed out on so many family and friend conversations. My wife would get frustrated with me because she couldn't share things with me. And it just creates so much friction in the personal life when your friends and family have iPhones and you don't. It just is a challenging thing. And that's really unfortunate. I wish it wasn't that way. I'm trying to get people to use Telegram. I'm trying to, let's use a different system to be able to communicate, but it just doesn't work. And as somebody that uses an iPad, uses a Mac, likes to take text messages and FaceTime calls on all those devices, it's really hard to leave that Apple ecosystem. Even my watch, my watch was useless, so I couldn't use that when I was using this phone. So it really just kind of felt more frustrating and like I was working harder at trying to communicate with people when switching to this phone. And that really boils down to the most important reason why I'm sticking with my iPhone is just reliability. I need to be able to communicate when and where I can, because ultimately that's the point of a phone, even a smartphone with all these fun, fancy, quirks and features and things that it has. The first thing a phone should do is be able to communicate reliably. If it can't do that, then it doesn't do its job well. And then the second thing, second is games and features and all these other things we love to have phones for. And with this phone, I think the order was just reversed. After I got over the initial hype and the excitement of all the features and all the fun things it can do, at the end of the day, I just need something that I can quickly and easily and reliably communicate with friends and family. And it just doesn't do it as well as the iPhone does. Just the reality of it. And I think that's an important thing to remember for everybody. If you're looking for a new phone or you're using a phone for certain reasons, is why do you have it? What's most important? For me, reliability and communication is by far, hands down, the most important. I want to be able to pick it up, have it take, a consistent picture, be able to send a message to somebody quickly and easily, especially over iMessage. This just doesn't hold a candle to the way the iPhone works and its reliability. But that's why I'm going to be ditching this and sending it back to Samsung for now and just sticking with my iPhone. As much as it pains me, I do love this phone. I wish I could use this. If it had the iMessage capability that iPhone does, hands down I'd be using it, but it's just not for me. I need something reliable. But let me know your thoughts. I really want to hear what you think. I know there's a lot of hype going around about this phone, rightly so. A lot of people are excited about it. It has a lot going for it. And I was actually searching and watching videos all while I was using it, just about people hearing their thoughts, long-term reviews, are they switching to it, especially from an iPhone perspective. And so I guess this is the video that I've been searching for and I wanted to see is, as a longtime iPhone user in the Apple ecosystem, is it compelling enough to switch? For me, I say no, especially if your friends and family are in the Apple ecosystem as well. It just introduces too much friction into your relationships, which is stupid to say, and it shouldn't be that way. If somebody pops up as a green bubble on your phone, who cares? It shouldn't make a difference, but the reality is that it does, which is very unfortunate, because I do love this phone a lot, but for me, it's just not compelling enough to be able to make the switch. So that's all it is. But like I say, let me know your thoughts. I want to hear what you think. Maybe you're in the same boat as me. Maybe you're considering a switch. Maybe you did switch. Let me know how it goes. I really am interested, and I want to have a conversation about it. So leave a like and a comment below. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.